Oh my goodness. Hi, good morning. So yeah, this is not the August interview. I don't know. I forgot to change that video and to put the getting started one. Yeah, I'll run the new video sometime soon. I don't know, like getting started with stuff is just one of those, oh my goodness. Yeah, so we're at it again. And welcome to Journey to SCA 2024, 2025. Oh wow, today's a day. Today is a day. But I'm here and we're getting started. So when I check the recording, I'll probably just delete that section. Oh, so how are you guys doing? Today is day 2 of school. Yeah, well, as you can see, I'm having a time of it. Resuming these lives. I guess, I missed you guys and I got out of the routine. And so now it's like, oh, what do I do getting started? Sometimes it feels like that. We're just sort of out of sorts. There's so much to cover, so much to deal with. And we're really just trying to figure out how to make the most of the time that we have. So thank you so much for tuning in. I am not It's not 11 o'clock exactly at the beginning, but hey, the session is being recorded so that you can get the whole thing when you get to it. All right. And thank you for those of you who have been waiting for the lives. I am settling in, getting back into the groove so we will get some stuff done. And today, what I really wanted to do, let me share screen. Yeah. Today I'm doing things. Let's see. I'm going to share my live screen. No, not that one. All right. So yeah, this is this one I want to share. Yeah. So oops. Yeah, I guess I've been only away from this thing for like about what? A month, 4 weeks, and now it's like I am trying to figure out my life. All right, so let's see. Is that the screen that I want to share? Yes, it is. Thank you. Woo. Yeah, I'm gonna find where everything is, and we'll get into it. All right, so here's what we're going to be doing today. Since this is our first session for the term, I felt like it was absolutely necessary to give you a sort of overview of what we're covering, what's the agenda for the term, so that you could kind of organize yourselves properly. And I'm going to go through a few pieces for creating a study schedule. If you don't already have one, then you could follow along and see how you could work out your own schedule. If you have specific questions for study schedules, then you could message and I'll try to answer those live. Um, the getting started, I'm just doing like a checklist of things that you can consider as you're getting started. And so we'll talk sort of generally about what your focus is for the coming week. And for those of you who are new to the lives, I'm going to be giving some more information about what the lives are about and so on. So let's get started with a little bit about me. So just in case you're new to the live, my name is Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, and I'm a creative writing specialist. Now, I believe that writing can be taught in interesting and fun ways. So, I personally use something called multisensory learning in my classes. And that multisensory learning includes having students really engage with activities and so on that deal with, we do drama, we do science experiments, we do some writing and reading, of course, lots of different things. So it's kind of like integrating STEM in the classroom for specifically creative writing. So that's what I work on. And I cover both creative writing and comprehension because I believe, reading and writing are like two sides of the same coin. right? So that is a little bit about me, and now a little bit about the journey to SEA. Now, this series I began in April, and what I'm looking at is covering different topics each week that would help you review and understand creative writing, and that is both reports and narratives. Plus, I'm also including comprehension in this series. So, if you have any challenges with reports, narratives, or comprehension, then you're in the right place because that's what we'd be covering. Sessions are generally about an hour, 60 minutes. I try to keep within that time. Sometimes I go a little bit over, and they usually begin at 11. That's my aim, to begin at 11. But I've started telling people, 11-ish, because something always happens. Like this morning, there was a power outage, like just a surge, and electricity was gone, and then I had to restart everything. So that took me a little bit of time. But we're here and we're getting started. And 6 minutes in, I think it's time for us to really look at what it is we're going to be covering mainly this term. So let's see. Now, from April, we looked at several different concepts related to the reports, narratives, and comprehension, right? And so the for those of you who are new, if you are a member of SEA, the Peacefield Approach, then check in the archives there in the files section, and you will see some study schedules. Because what I created several study schedules, one for narrative writing, one for report writing, and one for comprehension. So there are three schedules there that detail exactly what I would be covering each week. Now, we're a little bit behind with the schedule simply because I meant to do this session, which is the regroup and creating the study schedule, personal study schedules and stuff last week. And then this week, we would have been really kind of getting started with content. But things don't always work out according to plan, as we realize. But that's why we have the ability to regroup and review and then resume. And that's why I titled this session that today, because sometimes, we might have all these great ideas and then things do not work out the way we want them to. But the main focus this term is to practice. So, as I was saying, from April, we would have looked at, I'm just opening up my schedules now so that I could tell you. So, for narrative writing, we looked at what kind of narrative we're writing, and that would be like episode two. Um, Episode one, we looked at study schedules again. So students are writing something called flash fiction. It's not just a short story. I know lots of people are fond of saying, okay, a narrative is a story, and students are writing a short story. But it's not exactly just a short story. It's what is considered a micro story because it's so short. And some people call it flash fiction. So if you're looking for resources and ideas, you can look at flash fiction for children, and that would give you a much better idea of the kinds of things that students have to write for narratives. All right. If you want to get more information on that, of course, go back to previous episodes. We looked at plotting. We're going to be referencing plotting throughout. So it's good if you could go back to episode three. That's when I did the whole breakdown of plotting. um, Episode four, we looked at paragraphing, length of stories. Episode five, conflict rising action. Then we looked at escalating conflict. We did some practice with plotting of the stories. We looked at climax, lessons learned, character description, setting description, and then we kind of really laid that foundation. So these are all the skills that are required to really have that good what we consider a good SEA story. So we dealt with most of the skills for the narrative. And so for this term in our practice, we're looking at introductions, writing hooks, and so on, what goes into an introduction. Then we're going to look at the body of the story, the endings, and we're kind of practicing and implementing the things that we looked at before with the narrative writing. For reports, we covered already the 5 paragraph structure, which is the structure that I use. And that would be like episode 3. We looked at types of reports, which makes a difference, especially if you want to be following that 5 paragraph structure. And we looked at avoiding opinions, keeping language formal, some activities for vocabulary development, reported speech, passive voice, and what else did we look at? Transitions. And we ended with sort of getting into planning. And so when we begin this term, we're starting with planning again, and we're looking at how planning can be used to really get students to organize their ideas properly in terms of content. And it's a very targeted type of practice that students can actually engage in planning rather than always writing full reports. Um, and of course, we're going to deal with introductions, and then we'll do a paragraph by paragraph review. First paragraph, well, introductions, paragraph 2, 3, 4, and 5. We will do like a spot check on each one, and then we will start looking at the different types of reports more closely, and that'll take us to the end of the year. Now, all this time, students should be writing and planning and practicing, but as has become my practice, at the end of this session, I give you some guidelines of what you do next and what would be done, which you could do to kind of maximize the information that you have. For comprehension, let me see the comprehension schedule. For comprehension, we looked at the different types of texts. We looked at each type separately. We looked at types of questions. And if you don't already have a copy of the 2025 to 2028, um, what is it? I think it's the assessment framework. Yeah, and that's it. 2025 to 2028 assessment framework, which is going to govern what that 2025 exam is going to look like. Then get a copy. Again, copies are available of all the documents that I mentioned so far. They're available in SEA, the Peacefield Approach, the files section. Just do a search for assessment framework and it'll come up and you can download a copy from there. All right. And so that's what we're covering. So we looked at nonfiction, fiction, poetry, and graphics. And so for this term, what we're going to be looking at now is spending a little bit more time with context clues because sometimes students have some challenges with that. And then we're going to review all the different texts again, looking at their uniqueness. And each week, students should be practicing responding to each one. So we're kind of really focusing on getting the responses clear. So students may know what the answers are, but then remember they have to fit their responses, especially those where you have to write out a sentence or two. We want to make sure that students kind of get to the point and give the accurate kind of response that doesn't stray or add additional details that might cause them to lose marks. So that's what we're focusing on. And of course, we're going through it in order as we did. So it's a sort of recap and review with additional practice. And so we're going to look at context clues in particular first. And in reviewing that, we'll also review the types of questions that students would encounter for SEA. And then we're going to go nonfiction, fiction, poetry, and graphics. And then, so that should take us about 2 months or so, so that by the end of the year, students should be doing like a full practice test with the comprehension where they're combining all of these skills. So we still kind of spot checking with the comprehension. So we're targeting certain topics, but then by the end of the term, we're doing full comprehension activities. All right. So that's pretty much what we're covering. this term. And in doing that, we really want to pay attention to the type of feedback that we're giving students. And so I want to pause here just a little bit to explain a couple of things about feedback. I'd probably do a session strictly for feedback because while we use the term loosely, when it comes to giving the type of feedback that allows a student to really develop their skills, it has to be intentional and formatted in a certain type of way to really maximize the benefit for the student. Because when you think about it, feedback really is not just a response or a reaction. There's a difference between a reaction and feedback. And so when you're working with your child, you need to know, okay, how do I give that feedback to really get them going? Especially when it comes to the writing. You need to give specific kinds of feedback, but we'll go through that. And I'm working on a program, I guess you could call it, that would help explain exactly how to give feedback. It's not as simple as saying, okay, yeah, you need to do this. Students need to be able to act on the feedback. And so pay attention to the way you respond. Um, During the August sessions and lots of wonderful plans. I had intended to kind of update you guys on what was happening during the August sessions, but it was so intense that I was just so involved. I didn't get around to doing that. But we had a great time, covered lots of important issues. And one of the things that I noticed, I had this particular student who his writing needed work, but he was very curious and he experimented with his sentences and with his vocabulary. So let's say he heard a new word and he had an idea of what the word meant, he would try to use it in his writing. Now, of course, let's say 50% of the time it didn't quite work out, but the idea that he was experimenting with his vocabulary and trying to incorporate new vocabulary into his writing was amazing to me. However, somebody else might have, and I tried to encourage him to continue doing that, and we would make the changes, and I would explain to him how to do it so that he would get better results. But sometimes, like he would use a word incorrectly and, somebody would laugh and say, hey, oh, you use the word like that. That's not how we would use, and make fun of him for using the word incorrectly rather than celebrating the fact that he's trying to use this word that he doesn't use in regular language. And so that could be a deterrent in causing him not to continue doing that. And then what's the end result? He's not going to be improving his vocabulary. And he's learning that taking chances with your writing is a no no when it is absolutely a yes. Now is the time for students to practice and do things like this and to take chances with their writing to see what works and what doesn't work. So that come January, they would have a really broad understanding of their writing and their own skills and abilities so that they could kind of crunch down into the the last lap, so to speak. So now is the time to encourage this kind of exploration, which is why we are still sort of repeating and exploring some of the concepts by combining ideas. So really pay attention to the feedback and how the feedback is given and the kind of responses that you give. Make sure it's actionable. So we'll talk a lot more about this because it's something very important if your interest is in getting students to pay attention and to really improve. Improvement comes at the back of adequate feedback, and then the student takes action. So, all right, so a couple of reminders of some things before we get into the actual study schedule. There are games. I haven't put up a new game recently, but if you're new, there are at least about 12 games grammar, spelling, and so on. I'm trying to work out some punctuation games as well, report writing stuff, different things that could be done. So we have some activities there, online activities that you could engage with. I do still have lots of worksheets, comprehension worksheets, report writing. We have samples if you want to see what reports look like, what um, narratives look like. And then this word study book, it I have this project that I'm working on, and I with a colleague of mine, we got two done. So we have this one and another package. So we have packages one and two done. It comes with answers, and the comprehension, of course, comes with answers. But it's a booklet. It's not printed, it's digital. It's a worksheet that comes with comprehension, it comes with reading, it comes with focus on the words, it comes with different activities for students to really engage with words. And these words, my friend is a reading specialist, so we were looking at words that students have trouble with, and we're also working on words that are taken from the frequently misspelt words that the Ministry of Education issued. So what we've done is to put them in context. So there's a comprehension passage. So this also includes comprehension. It includes spelling. It includes like words and meaning and those kinds of things, and lots of different activities to really engage students. So this is ideal for, I would say, standard three is a good place to start with it. But of course, if you have a 4 and 5 student that's struggling with learning vocabulary and so on, these are some activities. And even if you get a copy and you could put in your own words and use the ideas that we give, that can help you. But of course, we include comprehension and different things. So that's an added bonus that you could just use it for that and get the whole spelling and everything done all together. So that's in terms of, these are just some of the resources. So you can visit my website. I'd put the link up in the chat eventually, because I don't have it up right now. And but there are lots of resources that are available to you that you'd be able to, maximize the time that we have this term. In terms of courses, I'm doing courses for standard 4 and 5 mainly. So standard 4, we'll talk about that in a little bit, and I'm also adding something new that I think parents have been asking me for this for a long time, but I couldn't figure out how to fit it into my schedule. So I'm doing a run this time around this term to see how I could fit it into my schedule. Um, but we'll get to that. So for standard fives, I have drill classes. Now, standard five drill classes mean that we're working on both, we're writing every week and we're looking at reports and narratives. So what we're doing is like this week we'll work on reports, next week we'll work on narratives. We're alternating because at this point, like I said, students should be implementing strategies. They should have already gotten a fair amount of foundation. They know the different skills. Now they have to practice putting it together. And so that's what we'd be doing. And so every week students would be writing and submitting essays. Every week they'd be getting written feedback, and then there's a built-in one-on-one session where I meet with each student individually to discuss their writing in particular and give them targeted feedback. So I have one class on Sundays from 4:30 and another class on Thursdays from 6:30. Each class is it's the same thing. So each class is 900, and class sessions are like about an hour and a half because we do review of concept and then write in class. I used to have students write outside of class, but then I didn't get the feedback because these kids are busy at this point. Standard 5, they're doing practice tests and loads of homework. So I wanted to make the session as um, useful as possible. So I actually give them the time to write in class, and then they submit to me, and then they get the written feedback. Because like I said, at this point what students need is to write and get the good kind of feedback that will help them improve their writing. For standard fours, where is that standard four? Whoops, I think I deleted it by accident. For standard fours, I'm doing reports and narratives separately. Reports are on Thursdays, narratives on Fridays. That's a 1 hour session, but students get that would be for this one. They get the textbooks, they get classes recorded, and we do interactions, lots of different things. So the new service that I'm offering is this one where I give feedback because, like I said, this term is the term to get the writing done and get the feedback that would help the students refine their understanding and get to the level that they need to be so that they could start really, you know, continuing with the excellence and getting into the habit of excellence. So when it comes to the writing and so on, so this is specifically for creative writing, reports and narratives. So what I'm offering for let me add that in. So I'm offering feedback on 2 essays for 150. So you submit two, and I give you written feedback on 2 essays. Now, the way I do it is you get a general summary for each essay, and then you'd get a detailed review of content. So, what I usually recommend to parents is that send me one narrative, send me one report, and I give you details on content. What is missing? What could be added? Language. Is it used effectively? How to make the changes, and so on. Because all of this, at the end of it, I give recommendations. So, this is the feedback. This is an assessment on what the writing is at this point in time, and then I give recommendations. I usually give at least 3 actionable things. Do this, this, and this, and the next time the report or the narrative is written, students should have improved. So that's the idea. We want to give targeted, detailed, specific feedback that would allow for improvement. So just for the written report, and it's a pretty extensive report, takes me about 45 minutes to review one essay because of the details that I give with it. And if you want to get an idea of the kinds of details that I give, you can go to, again, yeah, I keep mentioning SEA Peaceful Approach because in that group, tons and tons of support and information. But in that group, if you are in SEA Peaceful Approach, go to the pinned posts and scroll through the pinned posts. I pinned 2 or 3 responses that I gave to essays that parents had submitted, and those are my quick responses. Even with the details, those are the quick responses. And the detailed response that you'd be getting for this program would be far more detailed than what you see there because I would also give recommendations. And then, of course, if you want to add um, a like a face to face, but it'll be online. But if you want to add a discussion for a 45-minute discussion, I tried 15 minutes and I tried a half an hour, and it just wasn't enough because, like I said, I try to give detailed, actionable feedback. So it takes a little bit of time chatting with the student to make sure they understand what they need to do eventually. So I'm settling on 45 minutes. I don't think it would need an hour, but we would go with 45 minutes. If you want to add that, you'd pay 200 for the written report plus the live session, and of course we'd schedule us a time frame when we're both available. So we'll see how it goes because I am not. I mean, with the way my schedule is and with students having lessons and all those things, otherwise, um, the timing is a little bit challenging. But if you're interested, you can WhatsApp me. My WhatsApp number is here. If you're interested in the feedback, you can WhatsApp me and we could see how we could work that out. All right. But I think this term is the term to do this kind of thing. I'll probably do it next term as well. But it's this is the time for students to explore and really get into that. All right. So I think that's it for in terms of what I'm doing, what's available. Still lots of projects going on in the background. I have I have a three paragraph format for standard twos and threes that I'm working on. That'll be available soon. The practice worksheets for reports and narratives, all of that. Lots of worksheets coming because, again, now is the time, September is the time. Get your hand on some worksheets, get your hand on textbooks. You don't have to wait for teachers to use the textbooks. You, as a parent or guardian, you can go through the textbook with the student once you know what you're covering. Now, to know what you're covering, you would need some study schedules. And like I said, in SEA Peaceful Approach, I personally posted 3 study schedules. And I know the other admin, she posted other schedules that include math, different topics that you could cover. So you have all the resources there. So that would help you know what you need to focus on. And the next step for you would be creating a schedule to make that happen and to really sit with the topics and study them. So, when creating a study schedule, these are the things that you need to pay attention to right off the bat before you even do anything else. Outline the child's current schedule. So, what are the things that they have to do? They have school time, and then what other activities do they engage in? Do they have other lessons? Write that in. So, you might want to, do a grid and put at the top, the let me see. I wonder if I could put that in here. Um, right. So you want to, do something like, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but you getting the point that I'm trying to make. And this is why I kept my format free today. So you have the grid, and then you put in, for the week, you have Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, the put the days to the top, you put the times to the side. Um, you could do it online. Let's say 6 p.m. You could even start like with really early in the morning and just map out everything. But you really want to get representation of what is actually happening with the child. So let's say they get home, they don't have any after school lessons, and so outside of school, so they might leave school around 4 o'clock, maybe get home 4:30. So let's say from 5 p.m. they might want to, take a break, and then after that do homework, whatever the case is. But you want to map that out, and then you want to determine specific areas of focus. So, depending on the child that you're dealing with, you might realize that, okay, they're not doing very well in the worded questions for mathematics, or they might be struggling with narratives, writing stories properly. So make a note of that. What is the feedback you're getting from teachers or tutors if you have other lessons as well? Because even if the student has a teacher, there is still room and need for review and practice and study outside of that. So there is always room for a parent or guardian sitting with a child to get them to study. And notice I said sitting with a child because study and review is not okay, go do this. It's really kind of monitoring and sitting with the child. So while you might have them working independently, you also want to be near them so they can have that presence and that support. Sitting next to a child while they're doing work gives them support of your presence. And that is a really crucial factor when it comes to getting students to really focus and concentrate. It's not like you're standing over them with a whip or something like that. They're on their side of the table doing work, you on your side of the table doing some paperwork or whatever the case is, but you are there. So you might spend like 15 minutes or so with them, showing them a couple of things, making sure they understand, and then they do another 15, 20 minutes practice on their own and then you check it, but you are there while they're doing that so that they don't feel as if they're in this alone. It is so much more than just having the student do the work, it is about supporting them. And so that's something that I really want to kind of emphasize. Be there physically, not just tell them go and study. Even if you're just there doing your own thing, there's something, and I'm sort of digressing just a little bit, but there's something called body doubling. Um, it's something within the neurodivergent field, especially with people who have ADHD. There's something called body doubling. It's a huge thing. Research has been done on it. And what it is simply just doing your work, but having another human being present. It could be done online. I do it online quite often with a couple of colleagues of mine. Every Monday morning between 7 and 9 a.m., I meet with a friend of mine and I do writing. Um, every Sunday morning, I meet with another friend and we work on our projects. And there's something unique and very impactful about just having another human being there. And it's not like I'm discussing my project with them or they're discussing it with me. It's just simply they're physically there. So this is how we meet. Like on a Monday, we meet, we log on, we're on Zoom because my friend is in Canada. We log on, we say hey, we catch up for about 5 minutes, and then she says, "So, what are you working on today?" And I would say something like, "Well, I want to get a blog done." And she'd be okay. And I'd say, "What are you working on today?" She said, "Well, okay, I need to finish this project and this is what I want to accomplish during the time." And we say, "Cool." And we put on some music. I work well with music running in the background. So we put on the music and then she's doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. We're not talking to each other. And at the end of the time, when the time is up, we check in. What did you get done today? And I said, well, okay, I finished my blog and this is what I've done. And she says she should update me and okay, I finished this much of the project. So the next step is XYZ. And we're good. Thank you. Have an awesome day and we're gone. And that's it. And it's so I really want parents to move away from this thinking of, I have to sit with him to make sure he gets the job done, or if I'm not there, he's not going to do anything. It's not about that. It's really about I'm here and I'm supporting, and it's okay. And so there should really be any stigma associated with a parent sitting with a child. The child is not meant to be doing it on their own. And it's not as if something is wrong and you have to sit with the child. No, this is how things are done. This is how people get projects done. We don't live in this world alone, and community is huge. And we want children to grow up learning that somebody sitting with them to just be there while they do their work, it's okay, and it's not like something is wrong with them and they need this extra help. It's just part of the process. So while you might be doing it, the whole attitude behind it happening can create issues as well. So just be mindful of that. Um, and so it works wonders with neurodivergent people as well as those who might not have been diagnosed but might have some challenges. And just altogether, it feels good doing stuff with a buddy. So that's why they call it buddy doubling. And so it's not like BODY, even though I've seen it spelled that way. It's like buddy, BUDDY, like friend. So buddy doubling. So think about that when you sit with and you're going to create the schedule. Work at times you might not be able to be there for the full 2 hours, which is recommended, but you might just be there for a bit of time, let's say in and out, but you're checking in and you're there. Consider those things. And then, of course, you want to leave a couple periods free so that if something you want to get back to, or there's a bit of extra homework at a particular point in time, you would still be able to get to these things, right? So even before you start, you know, engaging in the study, these are the things you want to work out. And then, so here are some ideals. Now, I'm saying ideal because this is what has been shown to work well, but your individual situation is going to be very different from everybody else's individual situation, which is why the recommendation is to do that assessment first. Now, if you are, you know, you might not have your child in a whole lot of lessons. Some people do. So, work it out in a way that works best for you. Some students can do 2 hours every day, some can do 2 hours every other day, 1 hour a day. Figure out what the time works for you. But if you can, try to squeeze out 2 hours a day, right? And then we want to look at the ideal time to study each subject. So we have a number of subjects, and we want to go through a bit about that in a few minutes. But you want to like 30 minutes. So you're not spending 2 hours on one subject. In those 2 hours, you really want to aim for like three subjects so that you can have some flexi time in between, and you might go a little longer in some, on a particular issue, but you want to aim for like three subjects within that 2 hour session, with a water break, potty break in between, right? And you want to aim to try to check in with each subject like twice for the week. And for those areas that are more challenging, you might do 3 times. It depends on, what's happening, what other lessons are being done, and what those lessons are covering. So when you do the assessment of what the child's schedule is, if the child is already in lessons, you need to know what those lessons are covering. And that's like a whole subject. But if you can't check in with the lessons instructor and say, hey, what are you doing this week, or what's the agenda for the term? And if you ask that question, you don't get answers, then my recommendation is to find other lessons instructors, because this is a partnership, it's a group effort, and you ought to be able to know what is coming next, what is being covered, so that you know how to support on your end. It's not send them to lessons and they get everything done, and then when you come home, all you're doing is making sure they eat and go to sleep. No, it involves a little bit more than that, especially heading into the exam. We're in exam preparation mode right now, and it's not crunch time yet. Believe it or not, some people were already starting to panic, but it's not crunch time yet. You still have some flexibility, but you need to start getting the habits in from now. And so aim for like twice a week, 3 times for those that are challenging. And then when you're scheduling, plug in the challenging ones first and then do the rest. Right. And so these are the areas that you want to pay attention to study. And these are like subject areas. But within mathematics, for example, you know that there are the, like worded, we have, percentages, etc. So there are different topics within mathematics. If you're not clear about what those topics are, then, like I said, get a copy of the 2025 to 2028 framework. The list of topics will be there. If you want a shortcut, you can check in SEA Peaceful Approach and look for study schedule, and the one that Miss Giselle put up includes math. And so what she did was to do a spread of all the different topics and which one you can start with and which one work on next. If you don't want to go through the trouble of figuring it out yourself, there are study schedules there. For comprehension, you have the responses, you have understanding the text, you have the different types of texts, and we identified four. Um, Again, so you'd have to decide. So you're not just saying, well, okay, on a Tuesday evening, we'll spend 30 minutes doing comprehension. If you don't know what you're going to do ahead of time, that 30 minutes is going to go poof, and you're not going to get as much done, and you're going to start to feel frustrated and distressed. So decide ahead of time. And again, my study schedule is up in SEA Peacefield approach. But of course, if you don't want to have to go through the whole process of finding it, even though it's simple, you just go to SEA Peacefield approach, go into the files section, type in study schedule or comprehension or report. So, whichever one you're looking for, and you'd find them there. But you can send me a WhatsApp and I'll gladly send it to you via WhatsApp or email if you provide me with an email address. Um, but we have that study schedule so you would know, okay, today I'm dealing with nonfiction texts and we're looking at this type of question for nonfiction texts, and that's the focus, trying to understand this, trying to get responses. Tomorrow we might be dealing with um let's say vocabulary questions in context clues, and therefore this is what we're going to work on in that 30 minutes. Make those decisions. It sounds like a lot, but like I said, if you have a study schedule already prepared, you can work with those. And I am confident, because I know I put up 3 of them and Miss Giselle put up a couple, so that you can get them already sequenced, so that all you have to do is to plug them in your time, topics, everything. And so you want to work on that. Creative writing has 2 parts. So I recommend a minimum of twice per week for creative writing, so that one session would be focused on narratives, one session would be focused on reports. Now, ideally for the creative writing, if you can get 3 sessions each week with, a 1 hour. Right, so let's do two 30-minute sessions, and then we want to plus a 1 hour session, because that 1 hour session is to allow for the writing of a full report or a full narrative. Because at this point, while we are still kind of exploring and we are in exam mode, you want to start timing, right? So you want to really start timing. And we start with an hour. The exam is 15 minutes, which is 10 minutes shy of an hour. But you can start with an hour, um, and allow the child to write, see what they get done within the hour, and that kind of thing. So for creative writing, I would say 2 sessions plus that, 2 30-minute sessions plus a 1 hour session. If that's all you can do, then you would alternate 1 week reports, 1 week narratives. If you can do that twice, I would recommend 2 sessions and the hour for reports, plus 2 sessions and the hour for narratives. And that's, of course, if your child is really struggling, but you do want to have regular practice. So, me personally, if writing is a challenge, I would say plot that in first, and then you can do the math and the comprehension and everything else around it. But plotting the areas that give the most challenge first, so that you can the have that focus there, and then the other areas you could work on. And so for like spelling, you might want to give a list each week and do spelling. So like, a 1 30-minute session on spelling, I think per week should be okay, because you're also checking spelling in this, and you're checking spelling when they do responses to comprehension. So you're doubling up, and that's how you maximize the use of the time, right? Grammar, depending on the condition of the grammar, of course, there's that grammatical section. I would say maybe 2 sessions for grammar. Punctuation, maybe 1 session, because again, we're looking at punctuation here with the creative writing as well. So it's not as if you target punctuation once for the week. That's the only time it's being practiced. It's also being looked at in, excuse me, creative writing. And remember, this is study, so it's also already being done at school and whatever lessons the child has. So let's see. So we have the ideal time. My mouse is giving trouble. I went the other way. Okay, so let's look at doing an assessment of a child. So let's say the child is in school from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. School might over like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and they get home by 4 o'clock maybe. Um, let's say they get home by 5, but they might have an hour in between that to relax if they are at their parents' work or something like that. So sort of set that time. This particular child might have swimming on Sundays from 1 to 3. Your child might be doing gymnastics or football or athletics or something, and they might have different things happening. So make a note of all of that. And then they might have lessons on a Saturday, 10 to 12. So once you set these things down, you know that, hey, you don't you can't touch these times. So we're working with times outside of that. So let's say we'd have Sundays 6 to 8 available, Monday to Thursday 6 to 8. Notice I did not put Fridays or Saturdays because we always have to schedule some downtime and relaxation time. I know as it comes closer to the exam, the thinking would be I need more of this. But the trick is not adding more. The trick is in using the time that you have more effectively. And believe it or not, when it comes to studying and concentration and focusing, having that downtime, having that space for mental rest and emotional rest and the physical rest and all those other things and connections socially and all of that, um, that makes a difference in the studying. And there is actually research that shows exercising and doing physical activities helps students concentrate more and do better in their studies. So, this is not the time to cut out everything else. It might mean minimizing depending on what the student is doing, but we don't want to cut things out. And if you don't already have a situation where the child is being active, whether it's actual exercises like the kind of gym exercises, or it's like a game of football or, track or whatever the thing is that gets their bodies physically moving. If you don't already have that in your schedule, now is the time to kind of think about adding it in. And you want to do this like about a 20, 30 minutes 3 times for the week because you definitely want to get the body movement in order to help with the concentration. And if any of you, this sounds kind of, huh? Message me and I'll send you a couple articles that where research was actually done that shows physical movement assists in aiding concentration. So if your child is having a lot of trouble concentrating, then consider adding in some movement into their activity. It might even be as simple as after every sum, send them to the fridge to get something and come back. You don't have to tell them, well, okay, it's time to do your movement now. No, just send them. So, okay, you finish this one. All right, go and get a glass of water for me, please. Or, go outside and do this. Or, come walk with me or whatever the case is. Incorporate activity into the schedule, into the system, and you would be surprised at how it impacts on learning in the long run. So this is not like a one and done thing. Of course, this is a habit and a system that you're building to help the child manage their own anxiety, manage their own body in terms of feelings and physical attention. But at the end of the day, it impacts on the studying. So definitely include it. So this is what's available for study, and this is extra. If you happen to have lessons on a Sunday evening or one of these days, just block it out as lessons. And then maybe you might want to go, let's say lessons finishes at 8 during the week. Depending on the child, and if it's possible, you might want to add like one 30-minute session. So study one subject. So we could do like maybe, let's say the child has, let's add in lessons on Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., which means then that on a Thursday, so we'll do Monday to Wednesday here. And then so on the Thursday, um, what we're going to be doing, right? Monday to Wednesday, 6 to 8. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I could fit everything, right? 6 to 8 p.m. And then we have another 6 to 8 p.m. here, right? So then that'll be pretty much Sundays to Wednesdays. I could probably just do that. So that on the Thursday now, lessons finishes at 8. So we want to perhaps do maybe 8:15 to 8:45. So you do one subject at that time, um, to get it in, because the best thing to do is to get regular studying in. So as best as possible, if you could only squeeze in one subject, even though yes, the ideal is to average 2 hours. If you get only one subject in, take the time and review. But like I said, again, you don't want to just say, well, I'm doing comprehension today. You absolutely have to decide what about that comprehension you're going to be working on and what specific topic, because again, it's about being targeted and efficiently using the time, not just scheduling the time. So you'd have that. So let's say, for example, according to the study schedules that I have, for narratives, um, we're looking at introductions, I would say, let's say starting from next week. So we're looking at writing hooks and beginning stories. All right. So I'd probably post up like elements of introduction and different stuff. So you might want to spend the first session. Let's say you're going to do narrative writing here, right? You want to spend, understanding, spend 30 minutes discussing, okay, what goes in an introduction? Read a couple introductions and identify the elements. And then, so that's one session. Next session might be, checking on that knowledge. Okay, give me a list. What goes into an introduction? Let's analyze or write one. And, things like that. um so you can decide as it goes. So if we're going to do like a study schedule, so let's take out the Friday, because we're doing Friday evening. If you want to do okay, let's keep the Friday for those who might be able to or want to do the Friday. But we're definitely not doing the Saturday. We want to keep one day absolutely free so that the child can regroup. So think about it like, for those of you who are into like exercising, or you've read up on it or tried exercise routines, and those who do like dieting and so on, you talk about a cheat day. We have that concept of having a cheat day if you're dieting. If you're exercising, you have a rest day. It's the same thing with studying. You want to have a rest day or a cheat day where you can just like relax your mind. It can't be going, going, going all the time. We need to relax the mind so that it'll be fresh and ready for when you're ready to go again. So Sunday, let's say on Sunday, we might want to do, I guess if the child has, well, what was this child's schedule? We had swimming, so they're back and they're, might be a little bit tired. So, let's do some spelling then. So you might want to do spelling. Um, I guess under comprehension or in any of the topics, we can do vocabulary, because you can actually target the vocabulary, right? Because vocabulary, you could do vocabulary for report writing, vocabulary for narrative writing and expressions, vocabulary for answering questions in comprehension. So let's say we want to do comprehension vocabulary. And again, remember, we're aiming to be really specific. And then something light. So with math, we might want to tackle the tables, making sure there are no tables, or there are some formulas that students would need to learn. So we're doing that on this Sunday. So we have spelling, um, comprehension, vocabulary, and tables and formulas, right? So then on a Monday, we might want to do, let's say, narratives on a Monday, and then we want to do some grammar, and then we might want to look at worded problems. Yeah. Then on a Tuesday, we might want to do some report writing. And then we might want to look at, um, what else? Let's go back up to the schedule. So we have spelling, grammar, punctuation, vocabulary. Let's say we want to do, let's do some poetry comprehension here. And then we might also want to do some, um, let's say, math, and you would decide on what math, right? Let's see, a topic in math might be, let's say, whole numbers, right? So for this one, we might do whole numbers, right? Different things related to whole numbers. Um, And then on a Wednesday, we want to do more narratives. Remember, I recommend like we do like a couple of times a week, right? Um, at least three. Then we might want to do some spelling again, and then we might want to do some grammar. Now, of course, with the grammar, we'd have to break that down too. So let's say subject verb agreement here, and for this grammar, we might want to look at pronoun agreement, right? So it's called pronoun antecedent agreement, and all that means is like if I say five people were going, then I know I should say they in reference to the five people, right? Sometimes students get mixed up with that, so we could, but whatever the topic you're working on, and then we might want to do report writing again, do some more grammar, in which case, what's a topic with grammar? Plurals. And then we might want to work on something else with the um, creative writing, or maybe we could do some punctuation specifically here. And we could do some practice tests with the punctuation and see what areas they're having troubles with. We might want to do some vocabulary. We might want to do some nonfiction comprehension here. Um, then we might want to do some, let's see, well, whatever area is challenging to the child, maybe, let's see, maybe we can do a spot check with some spelling, because spelling is like kind of across the board. So you do some vocabulary in terms of answering vocabulary questions. We might want to do different things. And so this is like for 1 week, right? The next week, instead of poetry here, we might want to focus on graphics. And instead of nonfiction here, we might want to focus on fiction. And so we're adjusting and we're changing it up as the time goes, right? And so that's how you're kind of, working out the schedule. And so once you have that, and so you do like a week by week, and it's adjustable, it's flexible because you want to work with what is needed. But of course, you have a plan that you know within these 2 hours, this is what this is the time that I have. And so this is what I could work on. So I would say like on probably on a Friday, you might want to take a look at the week ahead and do the adjustments as needed and see how that goes. All right. So now I hope this has been helpful. It will be unique to you, and you will have to make your own adjustments based on what is required. and so on. But this is a kind of idea, like 30 minutes each. Um, let's say maybe on a Sunday, you could probably even like put aside Sunday afternoon totally for like writing full essays. And so, so you do the spelling and stuff during the week, and that kind of thing could work out quite well. So we have the two spot checks with the each narratives and reports, and then you write a full essay. One, let's say one. Yeah, we want to put that before, right? One full essay. So yeah, so we have that. And so that's kind of an idea for you could work out a schedule. If it is you want like specific advice on like you want assistance in creating a schedule, I guess I could be open to that. There might be a cost. I hadn't thought about that before. It kind of just popped into my mind. But it wouldn't be anything exorbitant. But if that's something that you were interested in, reach out and let me know, and we could work around, challenges and so on. Because creating a really good schedule and understanding what you're dealing with in terms of the child's ability, their attention span, their focus, and all those things would really help you maximize and make the most out of the term. All right, so getting started and then we're done. I'm already 6 minutes over the hour, but I'm going to take probably another 5 minutes or so just to wrap up with this, and then we're done. And next week, we'll be starting with introductions. We're looking at report planning, narrative introductions, and we're looking at context clues for the comprehension. All right, but here's what you would do. So this week, it's the first week of school, and for those who are already organized, they might be hitting the ground running. But to be honest, I always like the idea of using the first week to sort of settle in and not really start the lesson. So, like for example, my lessons don't begin until next week. Sunday is my first class, so there's still time to register, still time to get in if you're interested. But that first week of school with all the newness of being back in class and talking to miss again, seeing friends again, getting back into the habit of getting up early and getting to school and all of that, and there's a lot happening. So I don't advocate lessons first week of school at all. We need time for the dust to settle. And so while the dust is settling, you're observing and you're seeing what's going on, and you're determining how much and how you what focus you want to be. So you still have time this week to kind of work out the schedule. Um, and while you're doing that, include some rewards. So on those down times, let's say, maybe access to video games, which might be restricted now because we're in exam mode. Um, you know, 30 minutes playing a video game. If you answer all these questions, you get them all correct, you can have 30 minutes. Or if you answer all the questions, 20 minutes. If you get all correct, I'll add in an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however you want to negotiate it. But there was a time when I scoffed at the idea of rewards. Why is it that everything people do, you have to get rewards? Um, that's a whole philosophical debate, but what I've noticed is that we can be flexible with the rewards. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary or tangible, like, the extra time with the games, all those things. It could just simply mean, like, oh, wait, awesome, you finished this, come, let me give you a hug. And all of that is considered rewards. So in the research in the past year, I did training in something called habit formation. So this is how to get people to develop and implement and stick with activities that they want to do. And part of that whole system was incorporating what they called overall, I guess it's a reward, but it's kind of like incentive. And the whole idea is that when we realize, when our bodies and our minds and our souls realize that we're doing something that brings us some kind of positive reward, you're more likely to want to do it again. And so if you build in that reward system into the studying, then you're more likely to get a child who is focused, interested, and will more willingly go toward studying. So, and like I said, one week it could be a snack, next week it could be like playing a game, week after that it could be going for a drive somewhere. um Students are, especially at the primary school age, in fact, human beings on a whole, are surprisingly easy to support and reward when we understand them. For me, reward would be just like some quiet time. Leave me alone. Nobody calling me. Nobody asking me any questions. Just let me watch a movie or something, or let me watch a show, or just sleep or something like that. I'm good. I'd be happy. So it observe the child, observe the situation, so you know what rewards could entail. It doesn't always have to cost you. Sometimes it'll just cost you like a hug, a little nudge, and that kind of thing. It's very, very open, flexible. Human beings are not as complicated as we would like to think sometimes. So and then decide on the topics that you want to cover. You could do that week by week. It doesn't necessarily have to be this whole grand plan, pages and pages, and we're doing that. Just set the topics that you want to cover, and at the beginning of each week, say, well, okay, last week this is what we did, so let's do this week. You can have that kind of ongoing plan. But of course, let me repeat, study schedules are available. You can just pull from that and work with that as you go. Find a community. If you're not already on SEA Peaceful Approach, join that community. That's the only one that I could really vouch for because I'm one of the admins there. There are other really excellent groups. I know for writing, there's Writers Plus. Um, there are a couple other groups around as well, but find a community where you can ask questions. So if ever you're feeling stuck, you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, I don't know how to answer this. Or this is the response. Why is this one wrong and not the correct answer, what I'm thinking, and so on. And Facebook has this, if you're dealing with a Facebook community, like I see a peaceful approach, Facebook has this wonderful feature where you can post anonymously. So if you don't want anybody to know that you're struggling with something, or you're asking a particular question, then go ahead and post anonymously. And you get the feedback that you need. It's really, really, you don't have to do any of this alone. Plan on regularly reviewing your schedule. I say weekly because you're planning the week ahead and you're working on a week by week basis. And then you're observing how the child responds, because if there are any adjustments, for some children, 30 minutes is like the ideal, but it might be too much for some kids. So you might want to do 20 minutes, in which case you might want to work with a worksheet or something. Or you might notice that when you're dealing with discussions, it's challenging, but then a worksheet is very helpful. So you might want to do that. And then, of course, you want to gather the resources, worksheets, textbooks, use what's available. If you're not sure what to use for a particular thing, again, ask in your community. I want to focus on this particular topic. Where can I find resources on this? Ask it anonymously, ask it outright, but ask it so you don't feel like if you have to figure it out on your own. Lots of people have been there, done that, and you can learn from their experiences and gain from their resources that they have accumulated as well. So that's it. Way longer than I intended with a very interesting start. I played the wrong intro, but the exit is the same. So yeah, we're good. We're good. So thank you so much for those of you who were able to join. I know I forgot to post the reminders in the groups. Um, that I share normally in, but it's archived, and I'm gonna post send it out and let everybody, hey, sorry, I forgot to post a reminder, but it's recorded. It's on YouTube and it's going to go up on my website. It's also on Facebook. So you have three places to review it. So you can get that. So what we covered, the agenda this term is practice, 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 but making sure you get the right feedback. You don't want to just practice and keep practicing and then, 3 weeks, 2 months into it, you realize, wait, the child is doing the wrong thing. You want to get feedback. You don't want to develop the bad habit, right? Or the wrong habit. So make sure you get that feedback regularly. Create a study schedule if you haven't already done one. If you have, review your study schedule to make sure it works and keep checking in with it. All right. And then you got started and you can get started. You can do something this week right now. When I said that, what came to my mind, when your child comes home from school today, give them a hug and let them know you're there for them. That's like, you do nothing else today, this week, do that, because that as well is going to be really helpful in terms of getting that child to focus. Lots of parents ask me, now, how do I get the child to focus? Well, here's what: adding exercise to the routine, include a system of rewards that aren't always monetary or snack wise, because we also want to do healthy stuff. Um, and be there physically, be there with the body doubling thing that I mentioned. And that's how you get the focus. Those are the strategies that I use for children, for adults as well. They work. I tell you, they work. I use them personally for me to help me get the things that I need to get done. All right, so that is our regroup, review, and resume session. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I don't know, my number is not on the screen on this one, so let me put it here. I keep forgetting that I have to put it in this one as well. Put my number down here. Yeah, so that you could see 717-4993. Um Right, there we go. So there's a number 717-4993. WhatsApp me if you need specific guidance on anything in particular. Um, I can give you a reference, um, give you copies of the schedules that I have that you could start working with. Yeah, so we're in this together, and I'm going to be here every Tuesday. I cannot guarantee 11 o'clock every single time, but that's the plan, right? That's the plan. To be here every Tuesday at 11, roughly about an hour. We went over today because there was a lot that I had to say, plus the whole crazy intro. Um, but yeah, so comprehension, narratives, reports every week, and make the most of the time that you have. Okay. So thank you very much for joining. Those of you who were able to join, I really appreciate it. Listen, even if I just see one person, I know I'm not speaking into the void. I really do feel sometimes like I'm speaking into the void. But yeah, but we're good. So take care. Enjoy the rest of the week. Hope the new term has started well for you. But if not, hey, you could regroup. Weekend is coming. You can reset and go at it again. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.